Hello and welcome once again to All for Women's Football. Yes, there's just the two of us, but don't worry, John Foster will more than have his say this evening. I am absolutely sure of that, and that will all be on the other side of this. Yes, hello and welcome. It was WFA, Women's FA Cup weekend once again. Lots going on there. Sadly, this is going to be the last time we talk about it on this show because the lower league lot are out. But we will talk about those in just a moment. We're just going to say hello to Gareth, first of all, though, who has managed to join us live this evening. Gareth, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yes, surviving. Thank you very much. All is well. And we are going to kick off immediately, without further ado, with the Women's FA Cup. And there is only one way within which we could do this. Enter John Foster, who is going to speak to us as if live, all about the first match of the Women's FA Cup, which was Wolves against Manchester United. So, John, take it away.
Hello, Barry. Hello, Gareth. Hello, everybody at home. Thank you for involving me in tonight's show, even though I couldn't actually be there live. I am actually watching a football game right now. Stourbridge are at home against West Bromwich Albion, so a big Black Country derby there in Tier 3 North. But my thoughts on the FA Cup weekend just gone, it lived up to my expectations, to be honest. Starting
Well, now, this is going to be very interesting. We had some technical problems, it appears, down this end because poor old Gareth, there he is, there's me. So that proves YouTube was working. But that video didn't appear to me. So you probably just had to try and lip read John Foster, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So good luck if you tried that. This is the joys of live telly, and this is why we would much rather have people turn up in person. So yeah, there you go. Couldn't hear him on YouTube. So I hope you've enjoyed that last 2 minutes of pure silence. It's probably the most sense John's ever made, to be honest with you. But we shall find out. Gareth, whilst I'm trying to work out why on earth that hasn't worked, perhaps you could just sort of sum up really what John was saying there about the Women's FA Cup match for Wolves, because he was quite right. 5,000 people was a lot for a lower league side to have, but they handled it brilliantly.
Yeah, I think that the crowd is fantastic. I think the decision to keep the game at AFC Telford was a fantastic one. I'm a big fan of. I kind of sit on the fence really when it comes to games in big stadia. Um, I think it's fantastic and a great opportunity for players and fans, etc., to be able to go to places like the Molineux, for example. But I'm also a massive fan of building your fan base at the ground in which they can go. So give people a flavour of what they can expect when Man United come into town, and then they will get that same experience then when Nottingham Forest or Liverpool Feds roll in as well. So, huge kudos to Wolves. It sounds from the people that were there, it sounds like it was a fantastic day. I think the it shows that gulf, though, doesn't it, in kind of class and quality between the National League and the top end of the WSL, which is expected. I think that it's testament really to how good the pyramid is becoming, that teams like Wolves are getting this far. And yeah, I think it's a shame almost, that the game was as one-sided as it looked, kind of in terms of the scoreline. But United had to go out there and put a strong side out, and I think that's a real testament to Wolves, a real credit to Wolves that it would have been easy for United to potentially overlook them, and but actually I think it shows a lot of respect for Wolves and a lot of respect for their quality, that United said we've got to go out strong here, we've got to go out, we've got to put a strong team out, and they did that. I don't know whether there are some United fans that may potentially kind of wish there was some more rotation there, but yeah, credit to Wolves, they earned that tie. They had the glamour tie of the round, really. Them and Rugby Borough both got fantastic ties. We'll touch on rugby shortly, but yeah, I think Wolves now will be, they've come to a natural end in the FA Cup, and now their attention can very much switch to that tight title race at the top of Tier 3. That'll be where their focus is. That'll be where their focus was before this game as well.
No, absolutely. Well, I think I have worked out what went wrong. I have reviewed the VAR, I have reviewed the YouTube and worked out what has gone wrong there. So we should be able to repeat the same little job just here. And it should.
Hello, everybody at home. Thank you for involving me in tonight's show, even though I couldn't actually be there live. I am actually watching a football game right now. Stourbridge are at home against West Bromwich Albion, so a big Black Country derby there in Tier 3 North. But my thoughts on the FA Cup weekend just gone. It lived up to my expectations, to be honest. Started off with Wolves versus Manchester United women. I think from day one, from the moment I actually got into the building, and even before I got into the building, you could see Man United was in town. But Wolves raised the bar. I've been to the Wolves Stadium a number of times in the last couple of years. The Seat Stadium, it used to be called the New Bucks Head. All the road signs still say the New Bucks Head. Fans still call it the New Bucks Head. The Razor Bar, when you're coming into the car park, the amount of strict security that was there, everything was planned and organised. The media people all had the separate room that they don't usually do. There's not usually that many media people there, but this time there was. They had their own special room. They had a nice buffet in there as well. That the fans, 5,000 turned up, which has broke their record ever. Yes, it's because Man United, but how many Man United fans were there? 1,000 maybe, I don't know, but you've still got a lot of people turning up, and it's dealt with it really, really well. So first off the bat, just credit to Wolves for handling such a big team coming to your home patch, because they've never had that experience before. So well done on that. After the game itself, 6-0 loss for Wolves. I might speak to Dan McNamara after the game, and I really just wanted to salute him, because even though the result isn't what he wanted, and he could argue a couple of them were blunders, and it was more of a 4 or 5-0 win potentially if you're more leaning towards Wolves. I think he would have to be very proud of his team, and not just the team, everybody who played a part in that day. And there was a lot of people that did play a part. Unchanged team from the team that played the previous week against Rugby. Rugby is obviously one of the toughest teams in that league, so he's played his best 11. Two games on the trot. But the levels show, don't they? You have a look at Wolves in the league; they're absolutely phenomenal this season. You have a look at their budget compared to maybe some of their rivals. They're right up there, aren't they? They really are, and they could still win it. They really can. So, for me, it was a massive achievement for Dan and his side, and he should be proud. He's proud. But yeah, the level was just shone. So for me, Man United well deserved it. Yes, there was a couple of blunders, which is a massive shame, but there was also some debatable goals that was disallowed as well. So it probably all levels out, doesn't it? But more than anything, I just want to say a massive well done for the occasion, because it really did live up to expectation.
Okay, well there you go. So that is proof positive that we can make it work, and there it is, absolutely superb. So well done, Mr. John. Excellent stuff from him with regards to Wolves. I'm going to let you kick off, Kazza, with the Rugby Borough, because it's all northern, it's all more that sort of end. So do feel free. Yeah, you can feel free or feel free, whichever one you'd like to do, to have a little chat about Rugby Borough. Talk to us about them.
Yeah, I think the thing here is that Rugby really met the occasion. Really, I think they both had big name clubs rolling in, and I think Rugby absolutely rose to the occasion. I think it was 2 late goals from Liverpool that eventually kind of broke the kind of Rugby defences. It wasn't a case of Liverpool absolutely battering Rugby for 90 minutes and eventually kind of finding a late goal to win the game. And I think Lee Birch was really positive after the game when he spoke about what he called an underdog mentality. And yeah, they were Rugby had been a top side in the league kind of last year, this year, and it could have been easy for them to kind of wilt under the pressure of Liverpool coming to town. And I think they went into the game with a game plan, and that was to kind of try and nick something. And they nearly did. It wasn't a case of having to deal with wave after wave after wave of pressure. It was 84 minutes, and it was the substitutes really for Liverpool that kind of broke the deadlock. And then as Rugby were really pushing for that equaliser, they doubled the lead in injury time. So, it could so easily have gone another way. It wasn't like the Wolves United game where United's kind of dominance shone through. I think this was much closer. Granted, I think Liverpool aren't having as good a season as United. Well, they're not. But they went there and they got the job done. And I think for them, it will be a case of job done, move on to the next round, got through a potential banana skin, relatively unscathed. But for rugby, there'll be a lot of positives there that they can take into their league campaign. Are they going to come up against many teams in the league that are going to want to be that they're going to want to try and counter attack against? Probably not. But I think for a club to see lots of different kinds of teams in a year, be able to prepare for lots of different occasions, means that actually, that probably will fare them well in the league. And I know I mentioned it for Wolves. I'm going to mention it again now. These clubs, the FA Cup's not their priority. They're going to recognise that when they get drawn against these big sides, they are the underdogs, and they're going to go out there and try and make an upset. And if they don't cause an upset, well, actually, that's okay as well, because their main focus is going to be the league. I think you look at. I think outside of a handful of clubs in the WSL, maybe apart from outside the WSL, lots of clubs look at the FA Cup and go, "We just want a good cup run. We want to make a good account of ourselves. We want to finish this cup run and be proud of the way that we've done the FA Cup, bring in some good prize money, and then if all of those things happen, then I think it's a good season for teams. And I think rugby absolutely achieved that. Wolves too. So I think both clubs will look back at this and think, we've had a fantastic FA Cup run.
I mean, we had a good chat with the Wolves Women podcast as well, and very interesting to hear. They were talking very big about Rugby Borough as well, and about how well they performed in the league with them. So very, very interesting to see that Rugby Borough with a better score, but potentially against a slightly weaker side in Liverpool there. So very good showings from the two remaining people. And of course, speaking of remaining people, it means there is just one person who was the winner of the FA Cup for us here in All Women's Football Lower League Lingo. And that is, of course, this handsome young chap here who is going to take you through his thoughts on Rugby Borough.
There was, of course, a second Midlands team still in the FA Cup last week, Rugby Borough. So Rugby currently flying high in Tier 3 North. And a lot of people thought that they might have stood a chance. Liverpool aren't the same Liverpool as last year. And they ended up losing 2-0. It's not a game that I saw too much of. I saw quite a bit of activity on Twitter and a lot of applause. And Lee Birch has been nominated for Manager of the Month, I think for January, and so has Dan McNamara for Wolves. So no coincidence there, I'm sure. But Lee's done a fantastic job there. And we could see that the transition that they made from Coventry United to Rugby Borough, the transition that they made this season into the Northern League and not the Southern League of Tier 3. And they would have got in there with confidence, absolutely. But again, the levels kind of show, the fatigue shows. Also, being on the back foot more often. We saw it in the Wolves game. We saw it in the rugby game as well. When you don't have that much possession, you can practice not having it. However, you get worn down, don't you? You get worn down and you're against full-time players. It takes its toll. And obviously the ability as well. You've got players playing at that level week in, week out. But for me, it's so surprising I'm saying this for Rugby Borough, who's usually on the other end of this conversation. It's them that usually wears down the opposition. It just shows how massive of a gap that there really is. But I think more than anything, these players would look at Liverpool and aspire and think to themselves, right, well, this is where we want to get to. Let's make a good account of ourselves. And they certainly did that, didn't they? So, again, another congratulations to Rugby Borough for only losing by that deficit, and they definitely put themselves on the map, haven't they? So congratulations to them, and yes, I look forward to hearing what everybody else thinks about the FA Cup.
And the good news about that, John, is of course you've already heard it, so isn't that great news for you? It's been, I think, an incredible FA Cup for lower league teams, and it really pleases me to be able to say that, because literally the whole purpose of this show is to shine that light on the lower league sides, and the fact that we've had two lower league sides making it to the fifth round, I think it is just absolutely wonderful. And as we can see here, those two scores once again, Rugby Borough 0, Liverpool 2, which in itself just seems Really amazing, considering it was the 84th minute that the first goal went in. Wolves, a bit more of a struggle for them, not even a shot on goal, but an incredible experience nonetheless, which is what the FA Cup fifth round should be. And both sides drawn at home, both sides able to host the bigger side. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is supposed to be the magic of the FA Cup. And that's exactly what we had. So that's great news. Right. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it's gonna work. There we go. Right. The North West Women's Regional Football League is, of course, yours, Gareth. So without further ado, mate, why don't you take us through what has been happening in the Northwest since we visited it last?
Yes. So, lots has kind of happened, and also, not a lot in some sense. Wythenshawe are now back to the top of the table, after I don't know how much. Oh, after our win against FC United. Sorry, I couldn't remember what game sent us back there because there were lots of League Cup games last weekend. So it was 2 weeks ago. A win over FC United saw Wythenshawe go top, whilst Darwin fell to Mancunian Unity. So, yeah, some change at the top. However, a big game coming up this weekend as Wythenshawe will host Darwin in the reverse fixture of a score of a game that finished, I think, 6-3 in Wythenshawe's favour earlier in the season. Mancunian Unity are in County Cup action this weekend, so there's kind of a mixture of County Cup and league games going on. Towards the bottom, that super close relegation battle will see some twists and turns this weekend, particularly as FC United will host Fleetwood Town. So that's a huge game coming up. FC United only have 3 games left. This is Salford 5, Fleetwood have 9, West Didsbury and Chorlton have 5, Bury with 6, and Crewe with 5. So FC really up against it in terms of the number of games that they have coming up. Potentially beneficial for them, though, is who those games are against. They have to play Crewe, Bury, and Fleetwood. So all of the games they have are against teams where taking points off them is hugely important. But again, they can't really afford to drop any. If FC United beat Fleetwood, obviously they will move up to 8th, and it will be Fleetwood or Salford that drop into that bottom part of the table, and Salford don't play, so it would be them. The other game in the league this weekend is West Didsbury against Tranmere, so some other potential for West Didsbury to drag themselves out of that battle. I think 15 points probably likely to be enough to be, if not safe, at least almost there. One hand on safety, I think, if West can grab a win this weekend. So all to play for at the bottom for sure, and all to play for at the top. Whoever wins on Sunday will finish the weekend top of the league. Obviously, Wythenshawe with those 3 games in hand over Darwin, a win there to move 3 points clear with 3 games in hand, and then move 5 points clear with what will then be 3 games in hand over Curzon as well, is positive. That gap to Unity as well, 9 points, level points. Hopefully, touch wood. I don't mind being a bit biased here. Hopefully, that would be enough to at least kind of get one hand on that league title, or at least put themselves in that prime position to go on and chase that down. FC United, you think a win there will give them one hand on safety potentially as well. But yeah, all to play for, both ends of the table, and that's exactly what we want to see at this point in the year. We don't really want to see league titles wrapped up yet. We want to see teams having to, even if they are in prime position for something, You don't want them to be able to be complacent, rest on their laurels, and I don't think there's room for any complacency at any point in this league at the moment.
Do you know what? It's a really interesting league. Again, I was looking at it earlier. I mean, obviously, Wythenshawe doing great with their goal difference up there, which is like an extra point in itself. But the only other side to move up was Crewe Alexandra, and I can't quite get my head around how this has happened. But they've lost 10 games. It's the second most amount of games lost in the entire league, and yet they're sat there in the middle of the table, having the time of their lives. It's just it's really bizarre, isn't it, to be in that situation? But obviously, the 4 wins and the draw really, really coming to the fore there for them. So good stuff, and obviously some lost points as well throughout the league for a variety of reasons. So very, very interesting. But yes,
I think just to touch on what you said there about Crewe, I think it shows the benefit of going for it, right? If it's 1-1 and just throw everything to the wind, because West Didsbury have only lost 7 games, but they've got 5 draws and they're sat on the same number of games as Crewe, having lost 3 games less than Crewe, but find themselves a point behind. So I think it shows, actually, I'm not sure. I've not seen an awful lot of Crewe this season. We've not played them since August. But if you are drawing, go for it. Go and try and get them 3 points, because if it pays off just once, or if you manage to just cling on just once, it can have a massive impact on your season. I think it also shows just how congested that bottom half of the table is, and how interesting that relegation scrap is going to be. You would imagine that Fleetwood will be looking at that goal difference as being as high as -1. It seems a bit kind of weird saying that, but that goal difference being really good for the bottom half of the table, that's an extra point for them. Salford, with that kind of superior goal difference over FC, that's an extra point for them. So yeah, FC with that goal difference of -40 really need to go out there and get that win.
They really, really, really do. A 40-0, anyone? Could that possibly happen? We'll have to wait and see. So the Eastern region, this is where I get to have a little chat to you all. So that will be pleasant and lovely, and lots going on here, even though it doesn't look like there's a huge amount changing. Royston Town, obviously still top of the league after what feels like many, many, many weeks. 13 points clear of Luton, Haringey and Stevenage, who are all level on points. Now, interesting things have been going on. Royston have been trying to get through a League Cup match that needed to be rescheduled, so they haven't done too much in the league over the last couple of weeks. Luton equally had a similar problem. They did manage to get their League Cup match sorted, but they had other cups and things going on as well, and matches that have been called off. So the weather's not been great over there. It's a great story around Haringey, wherein they have managed to do incredibly well, of course, still getting the results that are required. But they had a County Cup match that took place. And what a County Cup match it was, by the way, Gareth, because Haringey were playing London Seaward. Now, London Seaward are a struggling side. You'll know that in Division 1 South East. They are on about 4 points and odds-on favourites to be returning, possibly either to the Eastern region or to the London and the South East regional. And London Seaward pulled off, it shouldn't seem like an upset, because it was a massive victory. They absolutely just dug in. It was a proper one of those. Even though they're the higher side, they really did dig in. They had, I think, a player sent off, people injured. Beatrice Rogers, who was on the channel on Monday, she went in goal. And she's not a goalkeeper, she's a defender. She scored a penalty and she saved a penalty, which she never in a million years did she think she was going to do. And London Seaward made it through. But due to a bit of an argument about the rules, I believe it was something to do with substitutions not being allowed to be given at the time when they should have done, the whole game got replayed, and Haringey went on to win it 3-0, which just feels like it's robbed a football of a story, if I'm honest with you there. But that's what Haringey have been doing whilst not competing in the league, which has given Stevenage a real opportunity over the last couple of weeks with some interesting wins. They've managed to beat Bowers 3-0, and then Wroxham last week with a 3-1 win. Amy Makewell with her 10th goal of the season, Gemma Crouch with her 15th, and Kelsey Millen getting on the score sheet. Chelsea Clark scoring for Wroxham, not Hannah Fuller, who is, of course, their top goal scorer. So Stevenage have made it level on points, but goal difference not quite where they would like it to be, and as a result remain in fourth. Dusseldale had a cracking couple of weeks as well. They have managed to beat St Albans 2-1. Sophia O'Dell scoring to level Olivia Syson's goal there, but I think it was an own goal that might have been the deciding factor between the two teams. And they've done incredibly well, really. They lost to Royston 5-1, but they did beat Watford Ladies Development. Excuse me, whilst I cough there. And as a result, those two wins have shoved them right up the table. They were sitting in 9th place, but they have jumped up a good few spaces, which is good for them. But 17 games does show that they are struggling a little bit in terms of running out of matches, just the 5 for them to ensure they remain in the league, having been a newly promoted side. Enfield Town and St Albans obviously dropping down. With that, Bowers and Pitsea have not had the greatest times. They drew 1-1 with Watford Lady Developments, Abby Wolven for Bowers and Harley Carr for Watford. But of course, that loss to Dusseldale from Watford hasn't helped them, and the loss to Stevenage hasn't helped Bowers either, and that's why they are still languishing just ahead of the relegation zone. Wroxham struggling as well. Needham Market, though, did come up with a spanking 4-2 win over Bowers and Pitsea, which has pulled them right back in the hunt, and Cambridge City still stuck right at the bottom. And there's going to be cup matches galore, as there always is at the weekend. Only 2 matches taking place this weekend. Dusseldale will go for the treble in terms of victories as they try and beat Wroxham as well, and St Albans will be playing Bowers and Pitsea. But to be honest, it's next week that matters. So the week after, the 23rd of February. Cambridge will play Needham Market. Massive for Cambridge. You kind of get the feeling if Cambridge don't win that, it could be lights out for them. And a return to Tier 6. Royston have to play Haringey right up there at the top, and that is a huge match. Stevenage will be playing St Albans, which doesn't feel like a massive game, but a very good local rivalry there. Wroxham will be playing Watford Ladies Development, and of course, as you can see, they are both trying to escape from Needham Market. Wroxham could be in the relegation zone by the end of that game. And Bowers and Pitsea will be playing Luton, which feels like, I've got to say, 3 points for Luton at the moment with the way that the whole thing with Bowers and Pitsea is going on. There we go. I've got rid of the league. Why have I got rid of the league? Well, that's because John Foster, God bless him, has yet more. Oh, hello. He's in. Go for it.
Yeah, just before you bring Foster back, that league's like a couple of things in that league kind of really strike out to me at the moment. One is Royston with my old classic, I'd rather have points on the board than games in hand, because looking at that, you think, oh, they're absolutely running away with it. But if Luton win all 5 of their games in hand, well, they'll go top as well by 2 points. But I'd much rather be Royston Town in that situation. Royston Town off of FA Cup specials earlier on in the year. I believe, was it Royston that featured?
Yeah.
Secondly, the Eastern region is the region that I'm from. I've not lived there for 12 years now, but it is where I'm originally from. And it strikes me as absolutely mad in terms of travel. So Wroxham are Norwich based, and having to travel to like Luton Town and Haringey and all sorts of madness. So yeah, for clubs at Tier 5, where players are full-time jobs and that kind of stuff, that's a trek on a Sunday from Wroxham to Luton. Bless you.
Now's probably the time to tell you I've got a little bit of a cold coming on, I think, and I have to have the sound on when John Foster does his videos. which is not the most helpful thing. So whenever Gareth speaks, there's any chance I've got to sneeze and sort all that out. So there we go. But yes, you're completely right. That game against Wroxham was absolutely crazy. We were at Wroxham the week before, and literally in the game, we got a text message from our secretary saying that because I think it was the Royston game was called off, that they've had to amend all the fixtures, and we're going back to Wroxham again next week. That was, of course, this result there. So we've done the double over Wroxham in 2 weeks, but what a time it was to do that. So yeah, very, very interesting. Right, let's see. Can we get John Foster back onto the show? We're going to try our absolute level best. Let's see. We push that button there, and you push this button here. He's, of course, going to take us through the East Midlands because that's one of his areas that he's on. You should be able to see him now, which is an absolute result. And what we're going to do is let him speak to you. If I can just drag that out of the way, it's the most awkward thing. There we go.
Just the one game, Barry, to discuss this week in the East Midlands. That's with several cup games happening as well. A couple of different cups going on in the East Midlands. But it was a really important game, especially towards the top of that league. Stamford AFC 4, Chesterfield 2. So Stamford did Sheffield FC a huge favour. Sheffield at the top of that league. And if Chesterfield had won, they would go equal on points with them. However, Chesterfield lost. Stamford AFC scored 4, Chesterfield 2. And I'll just quickly go through the goal scorers before we talk a little bit more about the league. Oliveira, Pollard, Shaw, and I think it's pronounced Lassite or Lackite. I do apologise. I do recognise the name though because I'm sure that player was playing for Peterborough at the start of the season. So I don't know if she's on loan or she's not registered, but I do recognise the name. I've just never heard it pronounced, so I do apologise. And Fowler and Atkin on the score sheets for Chesterfield. So regarding the league table, Sheffield remain top on 22 points with 9 games played. Chesterfield, 19 points with 9 games played. So as you can see, that 3 points would have kept them tied. Mansfield also on 19 points, but they have played 2 games more. And Stamford, they are now on 15 points with that win with 11 games played. Towards the bottom of that league, let's not forget 3 teams get relegated from this league. So the 3 leagues below them. So that's why there's three teams that get relegated. And the league only contains 9 teams. So if you're in the bottom third of this league, you're going to get relegated. Simple maths, but it's really interesting because 1, it's a good debate to have. You know, when there's only 9 teams, 3 of them getting relegated, but 2, it makes teams be competitive in the summer to make sure that they have to stay on top of their game because the moment you slip, the moment you're out of that league. So yeah, it's a great talking point if you guys want to touch on that one. And towards the bottom, it is Anston Albans on 11 points, Basford United on 6 points, and Not Trent on the bottom of the table also with 6 points. So I'll leave it over to you guys, and I will speak to you again next week.
Poor old John not realising the order in which I'm going to do things. So the fact that he's actually going to have to come back and tell us about the West Midlands, poor thing. But there we go. And he's quite right talking about the 9 teams that are in that league. But what's really striking and interesting about it is that he's actually missed a very important fact. I don't think he said it anyway. I did nip out for a minute and needed to blow my nose, and I thought I'd best do that elsewhere. But Ilkeston Town were the 10th side in this league, and they have disappeared from the league table, which I presume also means they've disappeared just fully from the league. And that would make a lot of sense because there are some teams that have moved about in this league without actually playing a game over the last couple of weeks. So there has obviously been a little bit of a reshuffle. Ilkeston, it looks like, have had to withdraw from the league, and as a result, there have been lots and lots of changes. which is not really that unexpected. So Sheffield being the team that I was talking about, they didn't play a game, yet they returned to the top of the table over Chesterfield. So, I mean, that's quite something, isn't it? Don't play a game, go to the top of the table without the team above you losing a game. So that's some hefty maths, that one. So there we go. But yes, it is a tough one to take. Right, we are going to throw it over to here, the Northeast Regional, and that is, of course, your wheelhouse, Gaza. So talk to us about the Northeast, mate.
Yeah, I think again, things have been happening and moving around. I think Chester Street had gone to the top of the table. But obviously, the way that our arrows work is from the last time that we talked about them, rather than from movement at the weekend. So yeah, Chester Street were top, or had gone overtaken Pontland and gone back to the top of the table. But Pontland have now gone back up there themselves. I suspect, given that it is 7 points with 5 games in hand, that Chester Street are in control of their own destiny very definitely. It would take, a couple of defeats within those 5 games for them to not return to the top of the table and return to the National League at the first time of asking. Which, I don't think it's unfair to say that Chester Street have become something of a yo-yo club recently. Last year, we're in the National League. But got relegated this year. The year before that, they won promotion after being relegated the year before. So it has been a case for the last few years that the Northeast Regional League has been, if Chester Street are there, then Chester Street generally end up winning the title. If Chester Street aren't there, then it's been a little bit more open. But, kudos to them. They'll be hoping that they can go back up to the National League. They'll be hoping again that they can kind of hold on when they go up. We've seen this year both promoted sides, Barnsley winning the Northeast Regional League last year, Cheadle winning the Northwest Regional League last year. Both those sides in a good position to stay up, and I would absolutely take that if that is what happens next year as well. I think it's good for the league for teams to go up and stay up. It's good for the regional leagues. It's what they want. Pontland seem to have, well, they have actually played a lot more games than most people in the division. They only have 4 league games left, whereas Bradford, South Shields, Spennymoor all have 10. So fixture congestion is going to play a role. I'm not sure I like teams finishing the season at different points. I quite like it when everyone finishes at the same point, but that's obviously not possible. Teams will know exactly what they need to do while Pontland are sat at home waiting to see what happens. The bottom of the table, though, there was a relegation scrap. That relegation scrap now appears to be less of a scrap and now a try and kind of see if you can kind of create some kind of miracle, because Hull have been docked points. They were kind of towards the bottom anyway, but now with that points deduction, find themselves some way adrift. York Railway Institute, Harrogate. Harrogate, I think, almost definitely will be absolutely fine there on 11 points. A 12-point swing in 7 games is going to be tricky. York, I think, one positive result for them, and they will find themselves relatively safe. That kind of what is it, 6-point deduction for Hull is going to be tricky to overturn. You imagine if they were still on the 5 points that they had, then that would be a real good, interesting scrap with them, York, and possibly Harrogate, maybe being dragged down into that. But now with that points deduction, it's unlikely that that's going to happen. I'm not too sure why that points deduction has happened, but it's always a little bit disappointing to see things settled because of off the pitch matters. But these things happen, and unfortunately,
Well,
that's
to
what's
help you
happened
with this
here.
one, Let me help you, because I did look at this before I came on, which was that they had 2 walkovers given, so they couldn't put out a side basically for 2 games. I was a bit intrigued. The first one was on the 26th of January. Didn't fulfil the fixture against Alnwick, and then on the 9th of February, so the weekend just gone, they didn't fulfil the fixture against South Shields. And I was a little bit worried that maybe they were going to go the way of Hackney and not be able to play too many games. But then I had a little look, and they played a game in between that where they lost 7-0 to your old mates, Chester Street Town. So it's a bit of a sad one, really, like you say, the fact that that's happened. But it seems like they've just had perhaps a bit of a shoestring team that's going on, and it just needs a couple of them to not be available, and all of a sudden it puts them in trouble. Seems to be where they are.
Which kind of ties us in with this upcoming weekend's fixture, which if they were still sat on 5 points would have been an absolute must not miss game. Hull United hosting York Railway Institute. Now you imagine that's a game where fates could possibly be decided. If York win that, they'll be 11 points clear with 6 games to play. Not an impossible task for Hull to overturn that, but you imagine we're moving into the realms of incredibly unlikely, given the circumstances, for them to be able to overturn that. But a win, who knows what can happen? Back up to 2 points, 5 points behind, 6 games to play. It only takes a couple of positive performances, a little bit of momentum, and anything could happen. Other games in the league this weekend, there is a County Cup weekend, so there's not a huge amount happening. But South Shields, well, I don't actually know. South Shields down to play Chester Street, but both in the league and in the County Cup. So I imagine County Cup will take priority there. I think Bradford are in County Cup action, so they won't be playing their league fixture. Harrogate Town are not in County Cup action. However, they are down as playing North East Women's Regional Football League reporting, so I suspect that their opposition was due to play in the County Cup. So it could just be that one fixture coming up this weekend, York against Hull, which is huge, and one I would definitely be keeping an eye on.
Absolutely, fully agree. And again, one of those leagues that just looks like it is going to be very tricky at both ends of the table. As you said, Chester Street looking pretty good up the top there, but Pontyland will be pleased they've got the points on the board. So the London and South East Regional, very interesting what is happening over here as well. Fulham are in that Luton position as it stands, where again they could go top of the table if they win all of their games in hand, but there are a lot of games in hand, and this was what I was going to bring up about that, the fact that both sides could well find themselves the big sides. Luton, an ex-Premier League side. Fulham, obviously a Premier League side as we speak, and both of them will be looking for their women's teams to progress. So very interesting to see where they are, and they will have a lot of work to do to make sure that they make it to the Tier 4 and the WNL. But lots of matches happening over this week. Let's talk about the ones that we have seen. Barking 3, Dorking 2. Now Barking, that's a big win for them. Dorking are doing their very best to play themselves out of any contention in this league. You would imagine that it won't be long until Fulham and Saltdean put Dorking into 4th, and it doesn't seem like it'll be any surprise at all. They've dropped off massively over the course of the last few weeks. I can tell you that Steph Mann got her first of the season and Jade Johnson scored her second. Can't tell you too much about Barking, because although they put their team up, they didn't want to tell us who scored. And when you go through their Twitter, there's information about it. There's bits about the sponsors. There's the result. There's not who scored. There's not when they scored. There's no tweets like that. But you can find their under-14s highlights. So I'm very confused as to what's going on there with the social media of Barking, but that was that. So they weren't telling us too much there. Dartford 5, Sutton 0 was, of course, a big one, which is why Dartford are looking so good, sitting pretty at the top of the table. Brion Fowle scored 2, Elizabeth Adams scored 2, and Emily Vaughan scored her 12th of the season, but not Amy Russ, who was their top goal scorer with 19. New Haven will be delighted with their win over Ebbsfleet United, which is one of the reasons why Ebbsfleet have dropped down. Gracie Cook and Danny Parfitt scoring for New Haven, 2 big goals there. That's pulled them right away from the drama at the bottom. Eleanor Hutchins scoring for Ebbsfleet. They'll be gutted, though, because in the 94th minute, 90 plus 4, they were awarded a penalty. And in the 90 plus 5th minute, that penalty was wiped away and a corner was given instead. So there was obviously a little bit of discussion going on. They would have felt like they were likely and hoping to get 8 points. We obviously only had them on 22. It wouldn't have made a huge difference. But for New Haven, all the difference, because that's the difference between them being on 11 or 9 as it stands. They have a nice distance between themselves and Sport London, who were beaten quite soundly by Saltdean 5-2 at home. Katia Armino and Georgia Frost, the substitute scoring. But for Saltdean, Georgia Bridges got her 8th of the season, along with Layla Emerson, Naomi Robinson, Caitlin Sullivan, and the substitute Ruby Menace. Laura Bunton, the top goal scorer from Barking in the league at the moment, and she is an incredibly good forward. So lots there to be looking forward to, though. This week is all County Cup pretty much, just a couple of matches. Ashford will be playing Millwall, which is really much of a muchness. Ashford looking to try and put Sport London into the bottom 2. The drama for them will be that Sport London do have a match, and it's against Dorking. So Dorking may potentially break the 30-point barrier this weekend, but even with that, you would still fancy the teams below to catch them. So lots happening there. With regards to the week after, though, things start to change at that point. There are some pretty tasty matches coming up on the 23rd. New Haven, for example, will be playing Sport London, which in itself is quite a big one. Saltdean will play Haywards Heath, bottom of the table, pretty much there. They're struggling down at the bottom. But Fulham will play Dartford. And that, to me, is just an incredibly big match. If Fulham can defeat Dartford, that will, you would think, be, what's the word you're looking for, advantage Fulham, because they would have it both mentally and to have the points on the board. But if Dartford can get themselves a little win there against Fulham, all of a sudden 41 points, 16 points clear, and only 5 games in, will still be 6 games in hand, but they really would have to win every single match. So that, to me, could be, and I'm going to say it quietly, could be the title decider pretty much going on there. If they manage to get that win, Dartford could well see themselves in tier 4. So there we go. That's where we are. I'm going to stop sharing that one because it can only mean one thing, which is that Mr. Foster will be returning to talk to us imminently about his league. But I have noticed I haven't loaded up his videos. So instead, let me just see if I can do that without causing too much of a drama to your ears, which I'm afraid I simply cannot guarantee. But I will try my level best. Don't know where it's gone. There it is. Lovely West Midlands. There it is. See if we can get that on. And you'll hear it. You just won't see it.
Yeah, this West Midlands League is really hotting up right now. It's getting to a point where every result matters. And yes, you could argue throughout the season, every result matters. And yes, it does. However, if you're towards the top and you're dropping points against teams that you shouldn't be dropping points to, it's going to put the pressure on, isn't it? And likewise, down towards the bottom as well. There's only going to be a few games that realistically you're going to pick points up from. And if you're missing out on those, you're either promoted, relegated, or you're out of it, aren't you? One or the other. You are, you know, it means so much. Thankfully, from the top half of the table, every title winning contender all managed to get 3 points. So I'm just going to run through a few scores for you, and we'll have a little talk about them as well. So League One, Shrewsbury 3. Shrewsbury is one of these teams that I talk about. They're just so inconsistent. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. Sometimes they're doing really well in the cup, but they're not doing well in the league. They just can't quite put them together. However, I think it's showing that they are winning the important games and the ones that matter the most. They're now up to 4th, so it's like the best of the rest. So they are doing better than just the average teams. So it's nice to see that they are creeping up the table. So yeah, they're 4th, and so which is really good because they've managed to push away Cowden Court, and Cowden Court's a very strong established team. So there's still a little battle there. You know the Shrewsbury's not going to, be title contenders. However, there's a little mini league there below the top 3, and Shrewsbury's leading the pack there. So great to see. Kidderminster Harriers 3, Port Vale 1. Lexi Harrison was playing against her old manager there, so she's one of the Port Vale's recent signings. She didn't get onto the score sheet. However, Mill Rogers did for Kiddie Harriers. So Mill Rogers, Eloise Harris scored their 3 goals. That's now 8 for Mill, 5 for Eloise. So some good numbers there throughout the whole season. And it was Olivia Mountford who scored for Port Vale after 35 minutes. So now that puts Kidderminster Harriers 28 points in 11 games. And that 11 games means a lot, as we'll go through shortly. Lye is the other team that's pushing for promotion. They're currently top of the league. Lye won 1-0 against Cov Sphinx. Cov Sphinx currently sitting 11th, and when they would have saw the fixtures 2 weeks ago, they had Kiddie Harriers last week, and then they got Lye Town this week. They're not getting a breather, are they? But so they're 11th, but they're only 1 point away from 10th, and I believe they've got a better goal average as well. So they're still in with a shout, absolutely. Lye Town, it was Tash Baptiste who got the goal there. That's 10th of the season. So that puts Lye top of the tree on 32 points, but they have played games more. Shifnal, big win for Shifnal. Shifnal 3, Cowden Court 2. So Cowden Court, as we mentioned, a real tough team, and they actually won the reverse fixture before Christmas. So they won this reverse tie 5-2, and that was Shifnal's first loss of the season in the league. Shifnal got their own back this time round, winning 3-2, and it was a massive win. Boddiston, Bowen and Davis scored for Shifnal, and it was Holcroft and Lundy who scored for Cowden Court. And here's a little stat for you. Lundy is the league leading goal scorer for Cowden Court, who are currently 5th, with 28 goals. 28 goals. The next player down has 13. So that's just a little crazy stat there, 28 goals. I don't want to highlight it too much because somebody might pinch you. But yeah, you've got to be looking at that. That's massive. Shifnal still sitting second on 30 points. And then the final game was Solihull Sporting against Alvechurch. Solihull Sporting 1, Alvechurch 3. Solihull Sporting towards that bottom end of the table. And they could suck into it. But what I would say is they've actually come out of the bottom 2. So not based on that result, of course, but they are on that upward trajectory. However, their goal average is so poor that it will work against them. So who knows, if they are equal on points, they will get sucked back into the relegation zone, but they're definitely on the way up. And Anna Webb, Bethany Grady and Laura Stevens scoring for Alvechurch. So yeah, bottom just as tight as the top. What I would say is there's still a few games to go, and they have still got to all play each other. So really looking forward to the head-to-heads. I think it'll mean a lot. I think the leagues are kind of leveling out now, so I still think there's surprises, but not as many as maybe that there has been. I think that the cream rises to the top, as they say. However, you've still got to play your best to win, haven't you? So really going to be interesting when these top teams start to play each other again. And I'm talking about your Lye Town and Shifnal and Kiddie Harriers. Kiddie Harriers are 3rd, but they have got games in hand. So it's in Kiddie's hands. It's in Lye's hands. Shifnal, they need to make sure that they win everyone basically around them for it to be in their hands. So it's just so up in the air at the moment. And every team looks like they're getting stronger as well now. So really exciting to see. And yes, I'll look forward to following this one throughout the rest of the season.
There we go, and we'll look forward to hearing it from you, Mr. Foster. Right, that means we are very, very nearly and rapidly approaching the end of our... Oh, there we go. I think that's it. The end of our show. There's the West Midlands one, just in case you wanted to see what Mr. Foster was talking to you about there. Just pause it now, and then you'll be able to see it, because we're changing it quickly and popping over to the Southern Premier, where you can see that Ascot United still top of the table, with Chelsea and Badshot Lee still very much at the bottom. Some interesting results going on in the Southern region this week. It's been, again, littered with League Cup matches and such like. But Oxford City did win 7-1 against Woodley United. Sholing were 2-1 winners over Chelsea. And Winchester City Flyers won 8-0 over the Reading FC Community Trust, which still makes me feel a little bit sad. They were the only 3 games that were being played, with AFC Portchester in the League Cup winning away to Aberdeen United. There was some games meant to be played the week before as well on the 2nd. Not very many of them were played. Ascot and Chelsea, Badshot and Winchester and Oxford and Wickham were all postponed, but instead Oxford played Ascot United, so that was quite nice. And Ascot won that one 3-1 away from home. Reading FC lost to Sholing 2-0 at home, which wasn't great for them. So you can see, as we said, some very interesting scores going on there. But there are some matches coming up over the course of this week. Again, lots of County Cup action, as that seems to be the norm at this level. But Badshot League, bottom of the table, will be looking to try and climb the table, but they will have a tough match against Wickham Wanderers in order to try and do that. The only other game that might be played is Woodley United at home to Chelsea. Everybody else is in either County Cup or all County Cup action. There's League Cup as well the week after, so lots going on there. Badshot League again with an opportunity to play against Oxford City, but as you can see, it's a little bit bitty in that league. Gareth, anything you'd like to add on that one?
I just to kind of echo what you were saying, really, about Reading Community Trust. I think it's a real shame that what's happened there. Being a Championship club, opting to withdraw from the Championship, going in at Tier 5 and struggling again. It's no one has like a right, or a kind of a God-given right to exist at any level in the pyramid, but when the decisions are made off the pitch through owners that have absolutely no place owning a football club, as kind of Dai Young does at Reading, it's really sad to see both the men's and the women's teams suffering as a result of just frankly abhorrent boardroom decisions being made. But there's all to play for. Kind of towards that bottom end, that relegation scrap is absolutely one to keep an eye on. Less close at the top, Ascot United firmly in control, I think, of that title race. But a shame what's happened to Reading, really.
No, absolutely. The last league to look at is, of course, the Southwest Premier. As you can see, only a couple of ups and downs. Torquay moving up, AEK Boko, or Boko, I'm not entirely sure how you would say that, moving up as well, swapping places with Forest Green and Ilminster, respectively. Everybody else completely as they were. AFC St Austell having a worse time, it seems, than the guys in your backyard. Mr. Gareth, they are struggling somewhat there with -3, which is never the most enjoyable position to be in. But again, lots happening within the league. Again, those deductions made to AFC St Austell, again through non-fulfillment, and again very, very recent, which is not ideal. But some results that have happened this weekend: AEK Boko lost 2-0 to Marine. Frampton Rangers won at home to AFC St Austell 7-1. Ilminster against Sherborne was postponed. Poole Town were bopped 12-0 by Torquay United at Poole, so that was a home game as well. And Pucklechurch Sports drew 2-2 with Forest Green Rovers. That was this weekend. Some reasonably interesting results as well. Poole Town really not having the best of it. They lost 8-0 to Marine Academy at the beginning of February as well. AEK Boko beating St Austell 6-3. Away from home, Pucklechurch losing at home again to Torquay, who scored 17 goals in 2 games there, 5-1 at Pucklechurch, and Sherborne beat Forest Green 3-2. So lots going on over the last couple of weeks there. This week coming up, AEK Boko will play Bishop's Lydiard and AFC St Austell will face Ilminster Town. Aside from that, it's mainly county cup matches. Poole Town will be hoping that they could be a bit more like Cool Town this weekend as they face Sherborne Town in the town battles. But apart from that, that's really this week in a nutshell for this league. Marine look like they're flying away for it. Again, there's 4 games in hand over Torquay, 12 points available, which will be just enough for Torquay to just sneak back to the top of the table. Sherborne can level up as well with 5 games, but they would have to win all 5 and try and score 31 goals as it stands in the process. Down at the bottom, as we say, Bishop's Lydiard in with a shout, and with Poole Town struggling like they have been, doesn't seem like it's too far away. Any other observations on that one for you, Gareth, to see us out?
No, I think it's an interesting league. I think, again, all to play for kind of towards the bottom, which is what we want to see. The only other thing really to mention is there are some fantastic names in that division: Pucklechurch Sports, Marine Academy, AEK Boko. Fantastic. One definitely to keep an eye on. There's some fantastic races there at the top and bottom of the league again.
I agree. Well, I mean, that is without doubt our longest show to date, and ironic that only 2 of us have been on here. So that does say a lot for the usage of video within football. Also, at least we worked out how the videos work with regards to muting on YouTube. I don't know why it chose to do that, really, but it did. So there we are. That was unlucky. Right, it's been a pleasure. We won't drag it on any longer. Gareth, thank you very much for joining us once again. It has been
Absolute
a
pleasure.
blast. We'll be back next week, hopefully, if we haven't all used up all the energy we've got left. Now, we're week 24, and I'm sure we will be back with tier 3 and 4, looking back through the WNL. We'll see you then. Take care.